Hello everyone, my name is Puneet. In this video, we shall focus on understanding of the text The Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh. The text begins from my grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, till she used to tell us. The author describes his grandmother saying that she was an old woman. Since his childhood days, he has not seen any change in the physical features of his grandmother. So, when people praised her of looking pretty in her youth days, it becomes very difficult for the author to believe them. A fight used to start in his mind to how the lady who has been always old could look young. Even when grandmother recalled her good old days and used to tell about the games she used to play during her childhood days, author could not believe them and considered them as moral based stories of some saints. Narrator, to his astonishment, also talks about his grandfather, whose photograph is hung above the fireplace in their drawing room. His turban, loose fitted clothes, and the long beard coming down the shoulders, which he calls it as a best look. The visible aspects of grandparents left the narrator very much confused. So these lines they describe grandmother and grandfather. Next part of the text is she had always been short till breathing peace and contentment. In these lines, the author continues to recount that his grandma was short in height, fat and bent because of her old age. There was a pattern of intersecting lines, which we also call it as wrinkles, means the face was full of wrinkles and they were visible all over her face, which was a proof that she had been in an old age throughout. She was the same from the beginning. Meanwhile, the narrator also characterizes his grandmother as beautiful and attractive in her own way. Her awkward style of walking by keeping her hand on her waist while bending a little bit forward, her unevenly tied grey hair, and her lips always chanting the god's name in a very low voice which was not audible to everybody. He portrays her beauty, comparing it with the winter scenery, which gave a sense of satisfaction and peace to the people around. So we can say that the author described the physical features and activities of grandmother. The next part of the text starts from my grandmother and I were good friends till village dogs. Narrator takes the readers to his village life where he shared a special bond with his grandmother as his parents shifted to the city. Their village routine used to be as grandmother used to wake him up, bathe, and dress the narrator, and in the meantime kept reciting her morning prayer loudly with an intention that the author will also listen, learn, and recite, but narrator l- listened the prayer only because he loved grandmother's voice and was least concerned to learn it. Narrator's school essentials included a wooden slate, yellow chalk, an ink pot, and a red pen, which were daily packed by grandmother. Breakfast included a stale chapati. Stale means no longer fresh. Some chapatis were kept for village dogs. The next part of the text begins from my grandmother always went to school till we threw at them. The author describes his journey to school and back home. School was adjacent to a temple, so while the students learnt prayer and alphabets, grandmother would continue reading her holy books in the temple. Both of them, on their way back, fed the dogs with the stale chapatis. So, till here we come to know about their life in the village. The next part of the text includes when my parents were comfortably settled till she rarely talked to me after that. Narrator says that he and his grandmother moved to the city when his parents called them. First, parents got settled in the city, then, both grandmother and the author were called. City life was completely different from his village life. From this text onwards, we will come to know about the author's city life. This brought a big change in the author and his grandmother's life, especially their bond. Grandmother found hard to engage her mind as her routine was altered. She no longer accompanied author to school as he was now going by bus. In village they both went to school together. Author was now in an English school where subjects, that is curriculum, was completely different and all new for the grandmother, so she was unable to assist author in his studies. Moreover, music was taught in narrator's school, which disheartened grandmother, as in olden days music was not considered a part of families with good background. It was meant only for prostitutes or beggars. Slowly, grandmother started keeping herself busy by feeding the sparrows. So, we can say that she loved animals and birds as she fed the dogs in her village and now sparrows in the city. Difficult to cope up with the author's new lifestyle, she went completely silent. It means she accepted the new lifestyle. Grandmother talked infrequently after that, means she hardly talked with author. The city life continues. In the next text, when I went up to the university, the text ends at be the happiest half hour of the day for her. Narrator continues to describe grandmother's love for nature and birds. When author says that when he went to university, he was allotted a separate room which widened his gap with his grandmother. The common link of friendship, the common room, was broken, but grandmother accepted her loneliness without any complaint. After that, she used to spin wheel the whole day, and for only half an hour as a rest, she used to feed the sparrows. Hundreds of sparrows used to create a veritable bedlam of chirpings, which means a perfect or a total scene of noise and confusion of birds. Grandmother felt very happy during that half an hour. This used to be her happiest half an hour as the birds rested on her head, legs, and shoulder. Now, this was the author's university time period. The next text starts from when I decided to go abroad till contact between us. Author portrays grandmother's expressions thoughtfully as the old lady did not show any emotional feeling while he left for foreign country for his higher studies. Grandmother accompanied author to railway station. She kissed his forehead, and the author says that he felt the wetness of the kiss. He also held the moment dear to his heart. It was a fond memory for him, as it could be the last sign of physical contact with her. In all the time at the railway station, grandmother continued her prayer in mind, and her fingers were busy shifting the beads or telling the beads. The next text starts from but that was not so till frivolous rebukes. Author says that while he returned back after 5 years, he noticed his grandmother the same physically. She was standing at the railway station to welcome her grandchild with a tight hug. But her routine of feeding the sparrows didn't change. That day she fed longer and with some light hearted scoldings to the sparrows, which is also called as frivolous rebukes. Frivolous word means not having any serious purpose. Rebuke means disapproval of something. So these lines they describe the homecoming of author from foreign. The next text begins from in the evening a change till she did not pray. It was the evening time of the day the author returned home after 5 years. To everybody's surprise, author says that grandmother did not pray that time. She behaved in a very odd way, instead called upon the ladies from the neighborhood and for several hours hit the old worn out drum and sang the songs related to the warriors. Author and his family had to assure her to stop beating the drums and stop singing the songs. They had to convince the lady very hard. The next text continues as the next morning till more time talking to us. The following morning she was ill. As per the author, he says that my grandmother was ill the next morning. According to doctor, it was a minor fever, but grandmother called it her end. Narrator says that she was deeply religious. As the last hours of her life, she wanted to devote to prayers rather than being with the family members. She thought that it was a wastage of time. The next part continues as we protested till crumbs into dustbin. In the last paragraphs, the author describes the way grandmother ignored everyone's request, means every family member's request, and opted to pray. After a short while, the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. Lifeless fingers indicate that she was no more. Her face turned yellow and unhealthy. She was laid on ground by the family members and wrapped with a red cloth. After few hours of expressing grief, author and his family members left the room of grandmother to make some arrangements for the funeral, the last rites. It was sunset, and author saw that thousands of sparrows gathered on the floor. But that day, to everyone's surprise, to everyone's gaze, there was no noise made by them. Earlier, we saw that they used to create a veritable lamp of chirpings, but today they were silent. Narrator's mother got some dry pieces of breads, also called as breadcrumbs, for them to eat, but sparrows did not. And as the dead body was taken off, the sparrows also flew away silently without noticing the bread crumbs. So, this was the last few hours of grandmother. I hope you all have understood. Thank you.